All righty, let's go ahead and get started. Take it away.
Well, oh, go ahead, Kara. I was just gonna say we're super excited to have everybody today, as well as our panelists. To quickly introduce ourselves, my name is Catherine. I am a BCBA and clinical sales advisor with Motivity. I've been really fortunate to work in a variety of settings during my time in the field, one of them being schools. And if I'm going to be honest, I would say it's probably one of my favorite settings, although it comes with its own challenges and different variables to address, which we'll, of course, I'm sure talk about today. But the school setting, there's just something really special about being able to work with kids in that type of environment. So really, really excited to get to join this webinar today and just talk with our panelists. And then we have Kara Lecklider here, who's also a BCBA special education teacher and Motivity's director of sales. I don't know if you want to say anything else about yourself, Kara.
I totally agree with you that the school is one of my favorite settings. As Catherine mentioned, I am a BCBA and a special educator, and I look back so fondly on all of my experiences there. So I'm so happy to be joined by school-based BCBAs today. Really excited to dive into everything.
Awesome. So just to review again what we'll be talking about today, we'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar all about empowering educators. During our webinar today, we're going to dive into a panel discussion with the experienced school-based BCBAs you see here. And they're going to share some of their strategies for effective implementation of electronic ABA data collection in the classroom setting. So whether you are currently implementing ABA data collection in your classroom or your school, or maybe you're looking to actually begin that rollout process, our goal for today is to provide you with some new tools or new knowledge on effective implementation from some of the strategies our panelists will review today. Here at Motivity, we're really honored to have these panelists today. Since all of our panelists are Motivity users themselves, but some of you as attendees might be new to Motivity, I'm just going to briefly take a moment to introduce who we are. Motivity has been around since about 2015. We are completely funded by grants through the National Institute of Health, and that's really allowed us the time to build a system that's extremely reliable and flexible. Motivity is equipped with a robust set of clinical tools, which includes program libraries, curriculum libraries, templates, tools for multidisciplinary collaboration, a clinical document builder, which Kara and I think is one of our favorite tools that we really enjoy playing around with that. And of course, in-depth graphing features, and that's just to name a few. Our goal and our focus is really to build what the industry needs rather than try to replicate what currently exists. And in doing that, we continuously meet with industry experts like our panelists today so that we can identify and address the evolving needs of the field. So like I said, we're really honored to have these industry experts with us today as we talk about such an important topic.
Absolutely. And I'm so honored to introduce our panel today of school-based BCBAs joining us from throughout the United States. A few of them have already started their school year, and some of them are still waiting based on where they are, but we're so grateful that you joined us today. So joining us are Mariah Sierra from New Mexico, who is one of the first school BCBAs in her state. From California, we have Chelsea Biznuni and Alexandria Jones, where they are building an innovative ABA program, the Wellness Project, from the ground up, where they serve students from across the district with severe behavioral needs. And from New Jersey, we have Melissa Pocha, who oversees a more established ABA program that has navigated several transitions in data collection methods. So together, they really bring a wealth of experience and insights to our discussion today. So we look really forward to a stimulating conversation and hope that you all leave with some really great key takeaways.
So when we were identifying what were the topics we wanted to discuss today, we of course spoke with our panelists, Kara and I being or having worked in the school setting ourselves, thought about things that were relevant for us, and then just talked with other school-based BCBAs about what's really important for them and maybe some of the challenges or different variables they're facing. And so what was the knowledge that we could present today that would be most beneficial to this aspect of the field. So that being said, some of the things we'll talk about, again, I'm sure they're going to ring true to a lot of our attendees today. First being, how do you convince administrators to adopt electronic data collection system? How do you talk with them about not only what it is, but then also get some of that buy-in? Device selection and budgeting. I'm sure budgeting is a huge deal for a lot of the schools and a lot of the attendees today. Staff training. So we know the importance of staff training when it comes to ABA, regardless of the setting you're in. But again, we know in that school setting, you're really in a unique environment where you maybe have people experienced in ABA and some that have completely no knowledge of ABA. And so how do you accommodate your training to fit that? Proactive solutions for ongoing utilization. Really excited about this topic today. So maybe you've already been able to implement electronic data collection, and now how do you ensure that that ongoing utilization is effective? This, of course, makes me think of behavioral drift, which we can see on small scale. So thinking about that on a larger scale in the school setting. Favorite data collection programs and tools. Proving the value of electronic data collection. So again, if you've already been able to implement it, how you prove that this should maintain in the budget. And then we'll end with some success stories that demonstrate program effectiveness, so we can just make sure to end on a positive note.
Awesome. So the way that we are going to do this today is I am going to direct questions to specific panelists. And after the panelists answer, I will open it up to the other panelists who are welcome to jump in with any additional thoughts and comments, again, with your breadth of experience and your different the different spots you're in with your respective programs. I think we'll have a really nuanced discussion. And to our audience, please feel free to contribute via the chat or the Q&A box. Catherine will be monitoring it throughout, and we're also going to leave some time for questions at the end. So with that, I want to start with you, Mariah, because I think it is so cool that you are one of the first school-based BCBAs in your state. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about your program, how long it's been in place, and what have been some of the challenges in getting it going?
Yeah. So we're in year 2 of having a BCBA on staff. Previous years, there was a BCBA who contracted and provided support, but they weren't local, so they didn't have that ongoing day-to-day support that was needed. So we're kind of in a transition period. We have what are called behavior assistants. So they support our students with the highest behavioral needs. So our kiddos that are aggressive or that might engage in elopement or self-injury. And before last year, they were all just kind of using paper and pencil and didn't really have a formal system or really what they were trying. All the students have behavior plans, but it was just kind of each BA did their own thing as far as behavior data collection. And so what I really worked towards was making something. I wanted something uniform. I wanted something that I could get into and look at any given moment and know what was going on. And it really took out a lot of the subjectivity, I think, of the notes and the data collection that was taking place, because it was all handwritten, and then someone would have to gather it, and then someone would have to collate it and figure out what it all meant. And so Motivity has been great for us for that, because it just streamlined it all. Our staff that's using it right now, I think we have 12 BAs currently. So it's a relatively small pool to do training with, which is nice because we're kind of able to start on that smaller scale. We have autism specific intensive learning centers at the elementary, middle, and high school levels within our school district. So long-term plan is for those classrooms to also begin utilizing this data collection system as well.
And I'm so curious, when you first started, were your administrators on board with the idea of implementing electronic data collection?
Yes, so I used Motivity when I did in-home ABA. So when I came on board, I said, I have the best idea. Please, 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 can we have this? It's going to make a huge difference. And really it was like, let's just give it a shot. Let's see, let's shop around a little bit. And I said, I promise it's the most user-friendly of all the data collection systems that I've used. And so I was really, really, truly lucky that they just took my word for it and said, yeah, let's do it.
That's amazing. And I feel like you could show immediately some of that time saving, especially like you mentioned, with the ability to see everything that's going on across all the learners.
It's
That's
awesome.
great. And Chelsea and Alexandria, I know that you were in a little bit of a similar situation where there was no electronic data collection in place when you first joined your district. So do you have anything to add to that about convincing administrators, some barriers, and getting things set up and how you address them?
Right. Okay, good. So I feel like when conversations started about data collection systems, we were very adamant, like, hey, we're very data driven, and everyone's, collecting data on paper and pencil, which is fine, but we're having to wait for that data to get entered into like an Excel or Google Sheets. And that is how we as behavior analysts analyze like if something's working or not, right? So it's like it was taking too long to be able to see that. And having Chelsea already know about Motivity, she kind of was like, I know this tool that can be super useful for us because you can like see the data collection live. And so I think when just us as BCBAs stressing like, oh, we're very data driven, we need to know like how it's going in the sessions or, that communication, they were like, oh, okay, well, if this is a tool that can be helpful for you, we want you to have like an efficient and effective way for our IAs, our instructional assistants, to be able to collect the data, but then also for us to be able to go in and analyze that data. So, so that was part of the conversations. And I think with anything, when you're bringing up, to administration that you want to add something new and it's going to cost money, there's some challenges, but I know that there was ongoing meetings and you guys had all the bells and whistles, right? Like you guys had things that other data collection systems didn't. I hadn't ever used other electronic systems before, but a couple of our other team members had. And so they also knew like the pros and cons for each of those other systems. And so that kind of opened the door for us to look at Motivity a little bit with a better light.
Right. And so when our team did look at it, the ones who had experience with those other electronic data collection systems, it didn't even stand close to what they had previously experienced, and almost their hesitation toward using an electronic data collection system primarily revolved around lost data and downtime, and the fact that they were able to see with our demo that in fact that wasn't true with Motivity, that certainly relieved and checked all the boxes as far as like what our team was looking for. So like Alex said, when we had to jump over those hurdles with where would the funds come from and who would we need to talk to for that, and then, oh, this is technology, our technology team actually needs to take a look at it and see, can they replicate this? And within seconds of showing them Motivity, they're like, oh yeah, no, we can't do this at all. Like this is going to take years, if not, yeah. So they were like, yeah, it seems like something that is robust and is going to achieve what you're looking for. So we had the backing of even our IT team within the district, which helped better sell the product to our administrators.
That's so interesting. Oh, Catherine, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think that's such an important point, Chelsea, is with talking with different schools, the role that IT departments play and almost forgetting how significant they are when you're talking about administrator buy-in. That's a great point.
Yeah, and it almost seems like the takeaway there is to approach the administrators with your data in place, which is kind of ironic that we're talking to a group of BCBAs to remind them to collect data. But really, if you're approaching your administration team with, here's why we need a system, this is how it's going to save time, this is how we're going to be able to better monitor progress, and then also figuring out ahead of time, what do the administrators want to hear? What does IT want to hear? So they want to know it's a reliable system, it's glitch free, your data aren't going to get lost. Because I don't know, my experience in schools is they're very hesitant to let go of that tangible paper pencil. So That's probably some of the first questions the IT team and the administration team is going to ask. All right, great. And Melissa, I'm going to direct this next question to you because I do know that your ABA program is a little bit more established from the others on the panel. So I was thinking you probably have some more experience just trialing different devices, maintaining devices and things like that. So what devices do you currently use? How do you make sure that you have enough? How do you budget as needed? And really, what are the pros and cons of all the different options you've tried?
So we're really lucky. We have a very large school district. We have 14 schools amongst the 10 elementary schools, 2 middle and 2 high schools. So with that comes a lot of devices. The students around the district get Chromebooks, which also gives us the opportunity to get them for our staff members. We do have individual Chromebook carts for our ABA-based program. So as of right now, last school year, every paraprofessional did have a Chromebook to use. We also have iPads that we have access to. So the nice thing is like they could just log into the iPad and everything is right there. There was some discussion about letting some of the staff members use their cell phone because it's an app, when we're collecting behavior data, out in the community or any sort of, we don't just use it for behavior data, we're collecting acquisition programs with it as well. So we're not just doing it in the school. We do a lot of community-based instruction in elementary up middle to the high school. So there was some discussion about even letting some staff members maybe use their cell phone so we didn't have to take paper pencil out with us or be, lugging an iPad and hoping that it's going to work. So that's kind of a discussion that's still on the table this year for letting us use that. I personally don't see a difference between the Chromebook. It works just as good on a Chromebook as it does on an iPad, as it does. I have an Android and I use the app myself while I'm in the school, and I see no difference between any of it. We're lucky enough that we just get them. We put in a list in the beginning of the year. We have a cart of 24 Chromebooks in our school. We have 35 students next year that we'll have, and all of them will have a one-to-one that will also require a Chromebook. So we just put in a list and we're lucky enough to just get what we need.
Amazing. Mariah, how about you? What has been your experience with devices and budgets and fun things like that?
So we're really lucky, just like Melissa said, we kind of just say what we need and we have gotten it so far. We have an AAC dedicated speech language pathologist in our district. So we have a huge technology budget for iPads. And so all of our behavior assistants have iPads that they can use. And then we have enough for our autism ILC staff when we're ready to roll that out for them. And our technology is really picky about the apps that we do download onto the iPads. So we haven't ventured into downloading the app yet, but the web interface works just as easily and it looks exactly the same. So it's really nice.
That's great. Chelsea and Alex, how about you guys?
We fortunately were able to get iPads that were funded through a grant. So our department's unique, and our wellness team, we have grant money because we're serving the gen ed population. So the admin does have a set of funds that they can utilize for our team, and so they saw the value in that, and we are also unique because we have our IAs as the users, right? So it's not that each of our students have to have their own account, but it's just us as our IAs or our team.
Yeah, our turnaround with our students is pretty quick. Since we are working in the gen ed population, these students aren't necessarily attached to any IEPs. And so our program is unique in that we go in, we service this, we help the student out in the class, write up a BSP, train the staff, and then we fade out as needed. And so Ours is a little
So
different.
it was a
for
little
that.
different. We just needed the devices for our team specifically and not necessarily
All the students.
all the
So-
students or other staff that are working with students. So it's unique in that way, but we were able to get that through a grant. And yeah, that's how we were, that's how we have ours.
I think that in general, grants are something that people need to invest some more time looking into, because I think you'd be surprised what type of grant funding is out there. I know even with Motivity, which is fully grant funded, we were surprised to learn that not a lot of ABA software is funded by grants, because the behavioral health space and the education space doesn't necessarily think first to look for grants. So that could be an interesting avenue for anybody that's looking to start an ABA program, to
Within
try
the
and find
district,
some
yeah.
grant funding.
Mhm.
All right, Mariah, I'm going to come back to you again because I'm just so intrigued by you being one of the first BCBAs in a school setting in your state. So I'm imagining that you probably had to introduce ABA to some of your staff, which we know can be, I know from experience, can be quite complex. So how did you then train your staff to collect electronic data? What were some of those barriers and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so first we started with just learning what data is and why it's valuable and why it's useful. So all of our behavior assistants they complete the 40-hour training for RBTs. They don't have to complete the full RBT certification if they don't want to, but they're strongly encouraged to go through all of the different steps. So that in and of itself was a game changer, because then they could really understand when I said, I need you to, we're going to look at the frequency. They knew what that word was and they knew what that term was. And then I myself as a BCBA, and then I have a counterpart who is he's our instructional coach for affective needs. So we both kind of tag team that oversight and supervision of our BAs and our RBTs within the district, and just really go and spend hands-on time. And it's been amazing to see what I think the way the data collection needs to happen. And then they get in there and they're like, hey, this is not working right. This is not reflective of what's truly happening, especially like for our interval recording. They're like, it's just not right. It's showing once, but it's happening more than once, or it's happening multiple times. Can we change it? So it's been really awesome to see their knowledge of data collection and how valuable it is flourish in the last year and a half. And when they come to me with problem solving ideas.
Melissa, anything to add to that from your experience with training paraprofessionals?
This is actually something I was just thinking about recently, because our program has really grown in the last year, and we have about 14 new paraprofessionals that were hired for the year. So, it's thinking of how to train them not only on Motivity, but basic, ABA principles. So as we were talking, I wrote down a note and I'm like, I wonder if we could make a training packet with ABA and Motivity all in one, so we could kind of try to kill two birds with one stone. In the beginning of the year, I tried to take the new staff members out of the rooms, because it's difficult to train staff when there's a student present. Yes, like when it comes down the line, we will train in the moment. I train all day long. I'm in the school 5 days a week, luckily enough. So I get to be there always, every day. So I do train in the moment constantly, but when you're first starting to learn even what a discrete trial is, it's very difficult when there's a child sitting with you, because we know they're all just not sitting here like this waiting. So I do, in the beginning of the year, take some time to pull the staff out of the room and kind of do some basic ABA training, but then also, train on Motivity. So my wheels are turning of how can we join this. Last year our BCBA team made a lot of training manuals, so we had them for staff after we did the in-person training. Then they had the manuals that they can use. But is it possible for us to kind of put those things together so we have one overall training manual? So that's my goal in the next week before we start school.
Plenty of time. That's interesting to kind of embed the ABA training into the Motivity training.
Yeah, I mean, it's all like it's all hand in hand. So if I
Yeah.
could figure that out, it may be a little bit easier to, update our trainings and kind of just do it all in one time, because we don't really have that much time to pull them out of the room for training. The children have one-to-ones for a reason, so they need the teachers need the staff members there. So, if we could pull them a little bit, but have this, material to go back to, it's probably working a little smarter, but
Yeah, for
we'll see
sure.
how it works.
And you had mentioned before the webinar started that you've been with your district long enough that you've seen the program using paper pencil data, transitioning to an electronic platform, and then transitioning to another electronic platform. So I'm just curious, was there pushback from the staff during any of those transitions, all of those transitions?
Yes, there was no pushback from the staff when we told them we did no longer had to paper pencil graph. I mean, we have some students on 20 acquisition programs. It was a lot. Not also finding the time for the paraprofessionals to graph during the day was very difficult. I started as a teacher in our ABA program. There was 2 classes. And in the last 2 years, I switched over to be the BCBA. Now we have 5 classes. So it was a lot. The paper pencil graphing was a lot. It was a lot to check it as a teacher. It was a lot for the BCBA to check all of them. When we switched to, of course, everybody was nervous because, what you know with paper pencil, but once they started to use it, everyone was thrilled. We did have some issues with the program that we were using. There was a lot of data that were going missing. It wasn't consistently working. So, then it puts a sour note in everybody's mouth when you say we're going to switch. You think that they would be happy, but there was a little bit of a pushback. But after the first year of nobody losing any data, no problems whatsoever, there was never a problem on Motivity end. If we couldn't get on Motivity, it was because we were having Wi-Fi problems in the school. So it was never, ever a Motivity problem, which is, great because we were having, a lot of consistent problems. I mean, we still have staff that take their little paper and plus and minus all of their data. I'm like, we don't need to do this anymore, because they were so worried about it going missing because it would consistently be gone. We would be collecting it. It would just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So even now that they know their data won't go missing, it's ingrained enough in their behavior that they're collecting the paper data.
My goal this year, change.
No more sticky pads allowed in the classroom anymore.
There's a few people that would really panic over that, but yeah, no, it's working. So I feel like, after the first year, everybody's nervous about new things. Oh my goodness, we just, some staff had just learned that, and we're going to try to do something new, and they don't want, nobody wants to learn something new, but even staff members that never used the old electronic data collection system pick this up very quickly. It's very, very easy to use. We've really not had many people that really couldn't get it. I don't think all year, we had nobody that really struggled.
That's great. And that's actually a great segue, because I'm going to pass it over to Catherine. But what I would love for Catherine to show, we're going to brag about all of you for a minute, because Melissa and Mariah have submitted to us some of the programs that they've set up for their staff to really make electronic data collection a breeze. So we call these our motivator spotlights. So we are going to show you some of the really great work that they've done on Motivity in our program builder to get the data that they need from their staff. And then to any of our panelists, if there are any additional examples you'd like to share afterwards, feel free. Catherine, take it away.
Yes, thank you so much. So Melissa, this is your program, I'm sure you recognize, so feel free to chime in. This is The things that I really love about it from somebody who didn't build the program myself, so definitely chime in after I've kind of given an overview. So one of the really innovative things that Melissa is doing in the school setting with some of her learners is, I'm sure we can all recognize the TA setup here. But what's unique about their setup or their process is the way that they're systematically teaching how to use or implement this activity schedule. So you'll notice here that they're taking data on each of the different steps that the learner's completing for this specific activity schedule. And she's set up specific phases. I can even identify my activity name. So maybe, Melissa, what's a good example of an activity that they might work on?
Color matching.
Love it. So we're able to see that once the learner does not meet criteria for the baseline phase, it's going to automatically go right into teaching. And again, they set up these different phases where every time the number of activities increases, they're first collecting baseline data. And I think that's just a really beneficial way to collect data, as we all know with BCBAs, capturing that baseline data, but embedding it right within the phases of this activity schedule for the different activity numbers that they're increasing. I know for me, I probably wouldn't have thought to set it up in such a creative way. I probably would have looked at each program being its own different component, but here it not only makes it really seamless for the BCBA observing or analyzing that data, how is the learner progressing as we increase the number of activities, but from a staff perspective, they're just looking at that same program that's automatically transitioning through based on the different criteria that Melissa or some of their other team has set up. Melissa, anything else you'd want to add in terms of how you're teaching this program or implementing it?
I just want to add, like, one of my favorite parts about Motivity is that we have a contact at Motivity who is always available to us. Amanda and I talked this through probably for an hour before we tried to figure out what we were even going to do here. So that is something we never had. We had customer support. You would message them on a chat. It would be sometimes days before you heard back from someone, and they wanted you to remember exactly what the paraprofessional clicked in the given moment, which I have no idea. I'm very sorry. Not to mention the teacher is the one messaging back, and you're teaching a room full of children and they want you to answer. So the fact that we can email Amanda, I have access to her calendar and can schedule a meeting with her, or, you know, one of my most favorite things that she does is if she makes something for us or fixes something, she always videos it. So she shows us how she did that. So in our BCBA team folder for our district, we have all of Amanda's videos in there. So we can, you know, because when we were learning it, the coding of the back end was very overwhelming. But once you got it, because we had Amanda that would video something for us and be like, this is it. And you were like, well, that was easy. So with the help of Amanda, we really can do really cool things like this. And while it seems extremely overwhelming, because when I brought this to the teachers, they were like, what even is this? It really is a great and easy way to collect data on these activity schedules, which, you know, all of our kids really are on in one way or another. The primary kids are on simple like color matching. You know, our intermediate classes are doing, you know, even, you know, folding clothes and all kind of like life skills built into their activity schedule. So we really wanted to try to figure out one way to make one activity schedule that could be used across the board.
And it's, like you said, it's so applicable to be able to just grab and apply to all the different levels you're working with. I know Amanda is definitely, all of our customer success team are incredible, but she was a special education teacher and BCBA, so you really hit the jackpot.
Yes, I requested her for our home program that we're using. I will toot her horn every chance I get to anybody from Motivity that will hear me. We adore her.
Well, thank you so much for commenting a little bit more on that program. I was super excited to spotlight this and just learn more about it when it was first introduced to me. Okay, so Mariah, similarly, I'm going to talk about why I love the template you've created, but please chime in to talk about your use of it as well. So for Mariah, she set up an ABC data collection. This is actually a note template within Motivity. You can collect ABC data as a program type, similar to what we saw a moment ago. But what Mariah has created is a really easy and efficient way to collect ABC data. So you'll notice in this template view here, this information would be pre-populated, and then staff can simply just put in the information that they need. So we're looking at this template in a simulated view in Motivity. This allows clinicians to test templates that they've built prior to making them accessible to their team. But again, I could come in, I've had an incident where I want to record ABC data for a learner, and I'm able to capture that the moment that it occurs. So we can say it was at 4:39. What's great about this template is, of course, we do have that ABA language, but it also puts it in layman's terms for me. So what happened before the behavior? I'm going to go with math worksheet. That was one that just constantly gets triggered in my head when I think back to my experience in the school. Identifying the behavior. I also, again, love this little parentheses, observable and measurable. What was it specifically that we were looking at? So maybe it was property destruction. This other section, I know plenty of the paraprofessionals or even RBTs in the school setting I worked with, they, especially if they're transitioning from paper pencil, they're used to be able to write all of the information. And so it can be difficult to then go to an electronic system where it feels a little bit more concise. So Mariah, including this text box where you could maybe say specifically that they ripped the paper or they threw the desk, hopefully not, but again, being able to include that extra information from the perspective of the person filling it out. It can be nice to make sure you're covering the full picture, but of course, really helpful from the BCBA to say, I know exactly what happened here. And again, to sound redundant, we not only have that ABA information, but what is this in layman's terms? So it's really easy for a staff member to be able to fill this out. You'll also notice that as I'm typing, everything's auto-saving in Motivity. So if there was a learner or a student continuing to engage in the behavior and the paraprofessional can't just complete this in one swing, they'd be able to work on it and return to it as they needed. But for me, Mariah, when I looked at this, I just thought the accessibility and the ease were two things that really I wanted to highlight. But please tell me kind of where this stemmed from creating this template.
Yeah, so I had to take a step back because I've been doing data collection and ABC data collection and notes and all the things for so long through that ABA lens where everyone I worked with understood the jargon and the terminology and the terms. I really had to break it down to make it easy for them to do. Again, kind of like Melissa said, it was very stressful in the beginning for our staff that had been around for so long that they're like, what? You're taking away my notepad. I don't want to give you my notepad. And so I really had to make it as easy and as straightforward as possible. And then so that anyone who has access to these notes can also understand what it is, not just the RBT or the BA who are writing it, but anybody else within the school setting who would need access to this would understand what all this meant as well.
That's such a great point, thinking about not only the person filling it out or the immediate person reading it, but just in general, for the collaboration or continuity of care for the care team of that student across the board, anybody could read this and know exactly what occurred on that incident. So that's a great point. Well, thank you both for sharing those examples. Like we said, there's such innovative ways to use Motivity specifically in the school setting. And we didn't forget about Chelsea and Alexandria. They have a little special treat that they'll be talking about later in the webinar.
Yeah, I love seeing those. Those are great. Melissa, you touched on this a little bit before, but we started talking about it even before the webinar started, that you're a couple days out from the beginning of the new school year. Even though your ABA program is well established, we know that every new school year is a new year, and you even mentioned that you have 14 new staff starting that need to get trained. So what are some things that you're thinking about proactively just to ensure that from year to year, across the year, that the electronic data collection use is ongoing and sustained so that you can show your administrators like this is a worthwhile tool. We are actually using this across the years and within the year.
We're really lucky. Well, I'm really lucky at my school that the 5 teachers that I work with, they just do it. I'm sure that's not the case across the board. Even in our district, I know, we meet monthly, the BCBAs, and everyone does not sing their praises of their staff that they get to work with, like I'm lucky enough to do. We just do this. This is just kind of built in our program to use this electronic data collection, to use it for all of their acquisition programs. And, I do oversee the programs and put the programs in place, but the teachers are really the ones that drive the instruction, drive the daily data collection in their rooms. And it's just kind of what we do. It's like the only really way to say it. It's just how our program is run. We do have an ABA based program. So, the whole day is mostly spent in discrete trial instruction and running programs and using Motivity. And, we use it sometimes in the lunchroom even, and in specials, we're collecting data. So it's just what our program is. And I'm just lucky enough to have really great staff. We have a fantastic principal that kind of drives what we do here. We are lucky enough to have a fantastic director of special services who used to be our principal. So we just have a really great thing in our school district that I'm just lucky enough to be a part of.
That's great. Chelsea and Alex, I'm curious, how do you plan to establish that same type of culture within your new program as you build it from the ground up?
Yeah, I mean, as we were attempting to get funds for this, I had to meet with our director and his directors about it to kind of push the idea. And when they saw and heard the level of data collection that we're able to capture with all of our students that we're working with, it really excited them as they make decisions year in and year out on where they're going to allocate funds to which programs. They were able to see that like the work we're doing, it speaks through the data that we are collecting. And so that gave them the assurance that they needed, that if there was ever any contemplation or maybe the funds could be best utilized elsewhere, that we could then come to them with data that's been collected over the year to further support why this is the best option for our team to keep. So that's pretty much how it started with us. And how we hope to keep maintaining it.
Yeah. And I think what I noticed is once we started rolling it out with our staff members, we're pretty lucky too, where we are able to train our staff members with ABA principles up front and beforehand, and they're the same IAs that we have. So they have that background knowledge. And so it was just now about teaching them how to transfer over that into that Motivity world, right? Like now we're looking at frequency data and it looks like this instead of on our paper and pencil. But a lot of them picked it up really quickly. And I think most of them were already familiar with using technology for things. So sometimes we would create forms in Google Drive or on Google for Google Documents, and they were more interested in collecting the data there. Like, so then they were interested also in having an electronic system and thought, okay, this could be a lot easier, so we had buy-in through them too, and they were picking it up super quick. So it was really cool that we were able to add things in the moment. Like I'm like, oh, okay, we have another behavior. Oh, I can just add that as a target right now, right here, and you can start taking data on it right now. That was really exciting to see, and they were like, "That's so cool." So we got buy-in that way as well, and we hope that to keep promoting that as like, okay,
the ease and that the funds honestly are totally worth it.
Yeah, right. And I mean, school-based ABA, or really any ABA setting in general, is a very challenging job, especially for those frontline staff. So anything that makes their lives easier is probably embraced immediately. I think back to my own career, the start of my own career, and I was sitting, every Thursday night, I had to put aside time, as I wasn't even an RBT yet, but I was a BT, and I had to come home, bring all my binders, bring my paper home, and use time in the evening to hand graph everything. So I have to imagine if there are staff that are experiencing that today, and then starting tomorrow, you don't have to do that anymore. Pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, we're going to be able to spend a lot more quality time with our staff. We meet once a week, every Wednesdays with them. And traditionally, that was the time where our staff would graph everything from their paper pencil to the Excel or Google Sheets. And now we're able to actually focus more on training during that time and really equipping our staff for the challenges that are to come from newer referrals or current referrals that we're working with. And it's going to really make the process a lot more engaging and exciting than just sitting there and reminding them, don't forget to graph your data, time in and time out.
Oh my gosh. I remember those days where, again, with me, in my experience, it was every Thursday you had to do it, because on Friday, a sheet of paper went up on the wall with all the staff members and what percentage of your programs had been graphed. You did not want to be up there with a low number. So yeah, eliminating that's huge.
We can relate. We have a similar situation.
And Mariah, you mentioned that you're entering now the second year of your program. So how were you able to show, maybe it was at the end of the first year, or maybe it's going into the second year, how were you able to demonstrate to administrators that this electronic data collection was worth it? Was there anything fun and exciting you were able to share with them?
I think the graphs and how easy they are to just they're easily accessible and they're easy to understand, have been a game changer for us. A lot of our students that are behavior assistance service, we tell them, like, you should be working yourself out of a job, right? We're going to decrease these behaviors and we're increasing these behaviors, and then you're going to train classroom staff and we're passing the torch. And before, when it was more the pencil and paper, it was really hard to say, when is the student ready? Because our RBTs and our BAs, they're like, yeah, no, they're ready. And the teacher's like, oh, but remember yesterday they had that like 2-second blip in the day, so it's been great for us to justify, like, no, look, we have 2 weeks of really good data showing this, so we're going to start working on a fade out plan, and here's how we're going to support you. And our building principals have really appreciated it. Occasionally you have a parent who wants to know every minute of every day what's going on with their student. And so the graphs have been great for that too, because it's just live and it's constantly up to date. So there's not that wait time of, well, hang on, let me go talk to them and I'll get all their stuff together and then I'll look at it. I review notes daily. So I am never surprised by a principal calling me and saying, hey, this student's having a hard time. I'm like, yep, I saw that note come in yesterday. I was planning on being there today. So I think they can see the value in that it's just live and it's constantly being updated. What I ended up doing was creating screen recordings for how to download and print graphs and how to download and print notes from Motivity, so that when someone else needed that, it wasn't always falling on me to say, okay, let me find the time to get your stuff downloaded and get it all nice and pretty. And so that's been awesome too, is that our building principals really have taken on that as part of just what we do now. And I know that our ancillary providers like it as well. Our speech language pathologists, our OTs, our PTs, our social workers all like the access to. So if they're like, hey, I'm working with a student that has a BA, can I have access to their profile? And I'm like, yep, here you go. You can see all the things. And we've even used it for FBA data collection. So not necessarily a student that is receiving one-on-one support, but they're like, hey, we're going to do an FBA. And so when I kind of consult with them, I say, how do you want to take your data? I can give you like pencil paper trackers that we can use, or you can use this nice, easy, online system. And most of the time, because everything else teachers do is on the computer, right? Their email, their curriculum, their Google Classroom, all that stuff. So they're pretty comfortable with the thought of it. And so I've also created screen recordings for just how to get to the student profile, start a session, and start collecting data. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you a rundown. I'm going to send you the links in case you forget. And it's been super awesome.
That's great. I'm excited to hear that you've been able to have a collaborative approach, because I think that's something we're seeing across the field in general, and especially in the school-based setting, that providers are all wanting to work together. And I think having everything under one roof, essentially, is really helpful. All right. If anybody has any questions they want to give to our panelists or put into the chat, please feel free. But I wanted to end before we tease it already. Chelsea's going to give us a little surprise. But before we get to that, I just wanted to end on a note. Melissa, I'll start with you. Throughout the years, what is some feedback you've received? What are some of your great success stories from utilizing electronic data collection? What are some of the great wins, whatever that looks like, in terms of learner progress or staff training?
I feel like because I'm at the school 5 days a week with the same, staff, we see wins like daily with the students, with the staff members. I feel like another huge win is that we can now go to a meeting with a family, pull up a computer, and really show them progress. I could specifically think of a time last year, a mom came to us in September, a new family, explaining they had a horrible summer because her son kept grabbing kids on the playground. She couldn't take him to the playground anymore because he was grabbing kids constantly. So we put a social story in place. We taught him all of these things. We were, of course, collecting data on and showing. We were able to go to that meeting and show her, look, we have not had any occurrences of him grabbing these kids. We have the data to prove it. Just telling somebody, oh, it's really not happening anymore. And the mom's like, yeah, okay. Well, the mom this summer, they went to the playground. He had a great time and they hadn't really had any more occurrences. So like that in itself, just to be able to show, I mean, the data speaks for itself. You can, how many teachers sadly just say, oh, they don't do that here just because you don't want to deal with it, but we have data to support it, and now we have a beautiful platform to show it on. So that was really kind of a huge success.
Oh, I love that so much. And they see it in their real life too, and outside of school on the playground over the summer. Congrats, it's awesome. Mariah, how about you?
I think for us, our biggest win is that continuity, the consistency across our providers, our BAs, our RBTs, and then just that ability to have that continuity of care has been a game changer. It really just helps everyone be on the same page, and it takes out that subjectivity piece to it, like right where you have the teachers or an administrator who is hesitant to let that extra support go, but we're able to say like, look, we have the same thing, like we have the data, we can show you that we're not just tired of you and we're moving on because we think we should. Like we're making data-driven decisions, and that's new to our district as far as the allocation of our behavior supports. So it's exciting.
I have to imagine you could serve more learners that way too, because if you can free up some of the staff, you can take in some more severe cases that you might not have been able to otherwise.
Yep, it's awesome.
That's
And I
amazing.
do want to note too, we have 3 BCBA interns. So hopefully next year will be there will be 4 of us. Yes, and not just me, all by myself.
That's great. And Chelsea and Alex, do you want to share any wins that you've experienced so far?
I mean, I definitely would say, because we're just starting to roll it out, but that win was when the staff were starting to use it and I was able to upload, like enter something right then there in that moment, it just felt really like nice because the staff were so excited that that was a possibility. So I would say like that is one of our wins too. But yeah, so it's just, we're still just starting to roll it out and teach them, but them picking it up is nice to see as well.
That
Great.
that's not a barrier that we have to really overcome. And we can really focus our energy and time in working and providing support with our students.
That's great. And yeah, now you're making me think back to when on paper pencil, when you need to make a change, you have to go edit your sheet, you have to print it out, you have to run to the photocopy machine, hope that it's not jammed. And what a difference, just be able to update it and it's ready.
Yeah, and our IAs are mostly at other sites, so that gives us a whole nother level of complexity. I mean, I don't even so many schools out here that we service and support. So yeah, that would make it
Yeah,
impossible.
that impact can go across geographically dispersed locations. It's exciting.
There'd be a lot of like crossing out of the target behaviors and writing other ones in because it's like, oh, these ones aren't happening anymore, but this one is. And us having to, again, take that time, like you're saying, to create the new form or edit the form and takes all that out. So it's really nice.
That's great. And now with the time we have left, with the surprise we've been teasing, Chelsea has been working with us this summer to build a school-based library on Motivity. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So myself and Emily with Motivity, and then another behavior analyst on the East Coast, we've come together to kind of tease out exactly what we wanted to incorporate in the Motivity library. And what we found is that while all the other libraries are very useful and have amazing programs already built out, we found that there were teachers who were going to be introducing these programs based on the students' IEPs that maybe had some complex ways of teaching the skill, I guess. And so our hope was to create something that was even more user-friendly and create, so I can show you the library right now, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think you just have to enable share screen.
Let's see. All right.
Do I want that? Do you want to stop sharing? And turn full screen? Yes.
And
Okay.
Chelsea, how many templates are in there? I guess you'll show us once.
Templates. Yeah, I'll show you. I'll walk you through it.
The beauty of the Motivity libraries are they're included with subscription and you have these all available to you. Oh, I'm excited. This is my first peek as well.
So far we've created, well, including the templates, 113 programs. And I'll show you the templates that we've built. So these are kind of the more simpler templates that we've used from previous libraries in the past, but we've catered them to be a lot more simple in the way that they were formatted. We're also including various references across the ABLES, the AFLs, and the BB map. And so you can use a crosswalk that we're currently building out right now to kind of go directly to that specific program that's going to meet and address that specific goal across at least those 3 assessments. And so as you can see, I was going to show you in the imitation program, we have, scroll down to that. So we wanted to make it either to where our teachers could put in an entire program and it has it from like motor imitation all the way through to with objects and so forth. And then what we're going to do is break up each of these programs into their own separate little programs so that, let's say this just kind of feels a little bit too overwhelming for some particular teachers, they have the ability to put in that smaller program that's going to address that one specific goal to meet that IEP goal. And I mean, they can use the more complex, bigger programs with more targets to kind of see where we were headed with the direction in that program. But what we'll do is we'll put something like imitating motor movements, parentheses, all, and then we'll break it up, same title, but part 1, part 2, or just this kind of thing.
Oh, so it's
it'll
almost
be-
like a sequence.
right.
Cool.
And we have labels already going in it, and we're adding them their respective domains, which is new to Motivity. And so our hope is to make it even more user-friendly and kind of seamless for teachers themselves to introduce programs. Yeah. Any questions?
I'm excited. And like I said, all of our community libraries are available with subscription. So it gives you a really nice starting point to utilize the Motivity community libraries and then copy them into your own organization libraries. I know, Melissa, you have a pretty complex library structure at this point where you have different libraries for different schools and programs and such. But you're really able to start with something already created for you and then get as creative as you need to be. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and share some contact information. So Catherine and I, we have the pleasure of meeting with anyone who's interested in learning more about Motivity. One of our favorite things to do is really learn about the individual needs of the groups that we're meeting with and set up instances of Motivity to show you what data collection would look like in your setting. So if you're interested and you want to share with us some things that you do in your school-based setting, we could absolutely set that up for you and give you a very personalized demo. So we would absolutely love to meet with you.
Oh, and I forgot to include, we're hoping to release the library towards the end of September.
Ooh.
So coming up.
Just in time as you're assigning out all of your programs for the new school year.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. I've really had a really fun time with you all. I could go on talking forever. Catherine, anything to add to summarize it up for us?
I just really appreciate everybody's time. I know I learned a lot thinking about the collaboration piece, but we were really fortunate to have all of you maybe just in a unique circumstance within the school setting. I know, of course, there's some commonalities, but the approach is going to be different in every school that you're in. And we really appreciate you kind of talking through what that's looked like in your school. And then obviously more specifically to electronic data collection. To reiterate what Kara said, we know that Kara and I just love meeting with people in general to learn more, but when it comes to school-specific settings, learning more about your implementation and then how Motivity can help support that, because ultimately our goal is to improve the lives of the students that we work with, and each of you are clearly doing that in your prospective organizations and schools. So we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for joining us. I hope that you all have some information to take away with you. Maybe you can confidently approach your school administration now. And please reach out with any questions. We're happy to chat further. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank